Welcome to Revenge Threads. I'm really curious. What country are you watching from? Let me know in the comments. I've always tried to be the kind of woman who forgives easily. Life's too short for grudges, I used to think. But that was before my sister turned my entire view of family and love upside down. My name is Natalie, I'm 28, and if you asked anyone who really knows me what I love most in this world, the answer would come without hesitation. Benny, my golden retriever. He's 5 now. Loyal, gentle, well-trained, and the one soul who's never let me down. My older sister, Amelia, was the golden girl of the family, the miracle mother. After nearly a decade of fertility struggles, IVF rounds, tears, and countless family dinners full of sympathetic looks, she finally had a son, Noah. And from the moment she announced her pregnancy, it was like the world was supposed to stop spinning for her. And for a while, I let it. I celebrated every scan photo, every baby shower. I held her hand when she was scared. I was genuinely happy for her. I didn't mind that she talked about nothing else. I even smiled when she referred to Noah as the son of our family, as if the rest of us were just planets orbiting around him. But soon the orbit became an expectation. Everyone had to shift their lives to revolve around her needs, her emotions, her baby's routine. And even though Benny had been part of our family for years, always calm, always adored by everyone, Amelia started treating him like a problem. The first red flag was subtle, almost laughable in hindsight. I visited her house one cold afternoon. Benny curled up on a mat by the door, minding his own business. The baby, barely 5 months old, started crying in his crib in the other room. Amelia looked at me with this dead serious expression and said, "I think your dog's presence is stressing the baby. Can you put him outside?" I blinked. "It's below freezing out." "Well, he's a dog. He'll be fine." I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I just picked up Benny's leash, told her I had somewhere to be, and left. That was strike one. A few weeks later, she doubled down. We were at a family brunch at my parents' house, and I'd left Benny at home just to avoid conflict. Amelia leaned over during coffee and said, "Hey, just so you know, I don't want your dog near my kid. Pick at all. He's an animal. Unpredictable." The irony of her calling Benny unpredictable while juggling a screaming infant was almost funny. Almost. But I didn't fight. I just said, "Got it," and mentally noted the shift. Amelia, who once asked me to bring Benny to family picnics because he made people feel relaxed, now saw him as a threat to her perfect little world. I didn't like it, but I stayed quiet. She was a new mom. Stressed. Hormonal maybe. I told myself I'd be patient. But patience has limits. And hers was about to push mine past the point of no return. I had a work conference out of town. 3 days tops. Amelia called me, panicked. Her apartment complex had announced emergency fumigation. She needed a place to stay. Could she crash at my house with the baby? I hesitated. Benny lived there. But again, trying to be the good sister, I said yes. Worst mistake of my life. When I returned Sunday night, my house was dark. Too quiet. Benny didn't greet me at the door like usual. I called for him, no response. I found him trembling in the laundry room, tail tucked, paws dirty, eyes glassy. There was no food, no water, and the door had been shut tight. Whole days. Because according to a post-it note Amelia left on the counter, he wouldn't stop staring and made Noah fussy. No apology. No explanation. Just a note. That was the day I snapped. That was the day I realized, some people don't deserve your forgiveness. Not when they treat what you love like garbage. Not when they act like your boundaries are just temporary obstacles. And she had no idea yet. But this time I was going to teach my sister a lesson she'd never forget. The moment I opened that laundry room door, the stench hit me first. Not overpowering, but unmistakable. Sweat. Fear. Pee. Benny had clearly held it for as long as he could. He didn't make a sound as I crouched down. Just tucked his nose under my arm, like he didn't know if he was allowed to be loved anymore. My hands trembled with rage. Not the shaking kind from nerves. The full-body kind where your vision narrows and your heart slams like a hammer in your chest. Benny had never been locked up, not once. He was crate trained as a pup, sure, but I never locked doors on him. I didn't have to. He was part of my family, my best friend. And my sister, my own sister, locked him in a laundry room like he was nothing. For 2 days. No food, no water, no walks, no love. Because he stared. Because she was uncomfortable. I stood up, called her immediately. Straight to voicemail. Typical. I fired off a text that wasn't even trying to hide my fury. You locked my dog up like garbage. You're never setting foot in my house again. I should be calling animal services on you. No reply. The next morning my mom called. Of course she did. Sweetheart, I heard you had some kind of misunderstanding with your sister? I nearly dropped my coffee. A misunderstanding? She locked Benny in a room without food or water. That's abuse. She was overwhelmed. Mom said like that explained everything. The baby's fussy, she's not sleeping well. You could have helped her. I did help her, I snapped. I opened my home to her. And she hurt someone I love. That's not stress. That's cruelty. There was silence, then the classic mom guilt voice. She's your sister. I know, I said. And that's what makes this worse. Weeks passed. I didn't reach out. Neither did she. I told myself that was it. Final straw. I was done. But then came the next call. A month later. From Amelia. I let it go to voicemail, but curiosity got the better of me. Hey, I'm going back to work next week and daycare's full. Any chance you can watch Noah 2 days a week? You work from home, right? It would be such a huge help. I listened to the message 3 times. Then I laughed. Laughed so hard I nearly choked on my tea. She wanted me, the sister whose dog she traumatized, to watch her miracle baby. For free. I didn't reply. So she texted. I'm guessing you got my message? Please respond. So I did. No. 1 word. Her response came fast. Seriously, after everything we've been through, you're really going to hold a dog over your nephew? That's when it all crystallized. To her, Benny wasn't family. He wasn't even a living being with feelings. He was just a dog. An object. An obstacle. But to me, he was loyalty. He was unconditional love. He was 5 years of comfort, laughter, and companionship. He never lied to me. He never manipulated me. And he sure as hell never locked anyone in a room because they didn't fit into his life plan. So yeah, I was going to hold a dog over her son. Because she made it very clear that she didn't give a damn about my family, only hers. And she had no idea. But the real lesson hadn't even started yet. It didn't take long for Amelia to escalate. 1 minute it was passive-aggressive texts. The next it was a full-blown campaign of guilt with my mother at the center of it. You're being cruel, my mom said over the phone one evening, after I ignored Amelia's 3rd question mark message in a row. I'm being cruel? I repeated slowly, setting my fork down. Mom, she locked my dog in a room for 48 hours with no food. That's abuse. She didn't mean to hurt him, she replied, as if that somehow erased the fact that she did. She's just under a lot of pressure. No more than any other new parent, I snapped. And she's not the only one with feelings. She didn't just hurt Benny. She hurt me. Mom sighed. But family helps family. And there was the classic card pulled from the bottom of the deck. The unspoken rule that family loyalty is unconditional. No matter the betrayal, no matter the pain, no matter the dog caged in a dark room like trash. I bit my tongue. I could already feel my blood pressure climbing. I'm not going to be the free childcare, just because Amelia never plans anything in advance and treats people like babysitters with beating hearts. There was a long pause. Then softly, she's really struggling, Nat. And whose fault is that? I ended the call before I said something I couldn't take back. But something had already changed, because I meant every word I said. And I wasn't going to let them drag me into their black hole of guilt. The next day I got a knock on the door. It was Abby, our cousin. She stepped in holding a Tupperware container like it was an olive branch. She's losing it, Abby said after a few pleasantries. Amelia's telling everyone you've turned into some cold, heartless woman because she accidentally upset your dog. I raised an eyebrow. Accidentally. Abby nodded. That's the word she's using. Like she tripped and Benny ended up locked in a laundry room. I scoffed. She said you're choosing a pet over blood, Abby added, and that you're punishing Noah for something he had nothing to do with. Interesting, I said dryly. I didn't realize I was the villain here. Abby leaned in. Look, I love you both. But Amelia needs a wake-up call. She's always expected the world to bend around her. Maybe it's time someone reminded her that choices have consequences. I stared at her. Was it weird that this, right now, Abby standing in my kitchen mirroring my rage in her own quiet way, felt more like family than any phone call from Mom? Thanks for the warning, I said finally. She patted Benny on the head and gave me a little smile. Don't let her make you feel bad. You're doing the right thing. That night, I finally allowed myself to think about revenge. Not the dramatic kind with cameras and public takedowns. Not the screaming showdowns you see in movies. No, I wanted something worse. I wanted her to sit with the silence. With the discomfort. With the absence of my help, my time, my forgiveness. She didn't just burn a bridge. She buried it under concrete and expected me to rebuild it. And she was about to find out what happens when the sister she always took for granted finally walks away and locks the door behind her. A week passed. Then another. And for the first time in what felt like years, I breathed without second-guessing my boundaries. Benny was slowly getting back to normal. The tail wagged again, he barked when I came home, he wasn't flinching at the sound of a door closing. But Amelia? She was spiraling. I muted her on every platform, but the updates still leaked through. Relatives, mutual friends, even coworkers who heard her venting at daycare. She'd gone from smug to desperate. Apparently, after exhausting every family member for babysitting help, she had started asking neighbors and even an old friend she hadn't talked to in 5 years. When they declined, she called them disloyal. Faker? She posted on Facebook. It's sad when people care more about a dog than their own nephew. Broken heart, but some of us rise to the challenge alone. #SingleMomStrong. She didn't mention my name, but everyone knew who it was about. I got 3 screenshots from friends before noon. I didn't reply. I didn't react. Because every word proved something. She was still trying to manipulate me through public sympathy. Still trying to weaponize Noah. And that broke me in a different way. Because I loved that kid. I held him in the hospital. I bought him his first stuffed elephant. I was the one who babysat him when Amelia wanted her first night out postpartum. I wasn't rejecting him. I was refusing to enable a woman who saw everyone else as background characters in her Miracle Mom movie. That weekend, I got a knock on my door. It was Mom. Of course it was. She stood there holding a tray of lemon squares and that look. The one that says I've come to emotionally blackmail you, but I'll be polite about it. Natalie, she said softly, can we talk? I crossed my arms. About what? About your nephew. About how this is affecting everyone. I didn't move from the doorway. Not about Benny though. Right. Her mouth twitched. Mom, I said, let's be real. If Amelia had locked a baby in a laundry room for 2 days with no food, there'd be an investigation. That's not fair. No, what's not fair is pretending like Benny doesn't matter. What's not fair is pretending Amelia didn't cross a line so deep it cut through the center of our family. She looked down. She's tired. She's alone. She's alone because she treated people like they were disposable. This is the result of her own choices. I raised you girls to be kind. And you raised one of us to believe the world owes her grace no matter how cruel she acts. Mom's eyes filled with tears. And for a second, a small, strange second, I felt guilty. But it passed. Because boundaries aren't cruelty. And silence isn't revenge. Sometimes silence is the loudest act of rebellion there is. I'm not her savior, I said calmly. She made her bed. Let her learn how to lie in it without expecting everyone else to change her sheets. Then I closed the door. That night, I cuddled Benny on the couch, scrolling through photos from years ago. Birthdays, beach days, all the happy moments that Amelia used to be part of. I mourned something. Not a relationship, but the illusion of one. And in its place, I planted something new: resolve. This wasn't over yet. Amelia thought she could manipulate people into guilt, into submission, into forgetting. But what she didn't realize was that this wasn't about a babysitting favor anymore. This was a reckoning. One she earned. And one I was just getting started with. Two weeks of silence were all it took. That's how long it took for Amelia to hit her wall. For her to realize that maybe, just maybe, she wasn't going to charm, guilt, or manipulate her way out of this one. Because what she needed wasn't validation. It was a free nanny. And when you cut off access to the supply, desperation sets in. It started small, a text from an unknown number. "Hey, it's Jess, Amelia's friend. She said you might be able to help out watching Noah next week." I stared at my screen and blinked. Did she seriously think I'd fall for that? I replied with, "Hi Jess. You've been misinformed." No response. Then not even 24 hours later, I got a call from a local daycare center. They were doing routine reference checks for Noah's emergency contact list. Apparently, Amelia had put me down as someone who could pick him up anytime if needed. I nearly laughed. "Remove my name from that list," I told the receptionist. "I'm not involved in his care. I've made that very clear." Another pause. "You're not an authorized guardian?" "No," I said flatly. "And I won't be. Not after what his mother did to my dog." The line went silent for a moment, then the woman thanked me and hung up. A day later, the calls began. First it was Mom again. Then Aunt Karen. Then Amelia's best friend from high school who I hadn't spoken to in years. They all gave me some version of the same script. "She's under so much stress. She made a mistake. It's not fair to punish a baby for adult problems." That last one was the one that really got under my skin. Because that's the card Amelia kept playing. The baby, like Noah, was her emotional human shield. And the more I thought about it, the angrier I got. Because she knew I loved Noah. She knew I'd always had a soft spot for kids, for helping, for being the one people could rely on. She was counting on it. Counting on me breaking first. But she didn't realize something important. This wasn't about punishment. This was about pattern. If I gave in now, even just for one afternoon, I'd teach her that betrayal was negotiable. That forgiveness was automatic. That she could hurt someone I loved and still get what she wanted, as long as she cried hard enough or played the right victim melody. And I wasn't going to play that game. So I did the unthinkable. I called the daycare center back. "I need to put something in writing," I said. "A formal statement saying I'm not to be contacted for anything regarding Noah. Not pickup. Not emergencies. Not permission for anything. I want it on file that I've explicitly opted out." The receptionist was polite, but she didn't hide her surprise. I didn't blame her. Most people don't formally cut themselves out of a baby's life. But most people don't have sisters who lock their dogs in laundry rooms and then beg for babysitting help 2 weeks later. I sent the email. I CC'd Amelia. 15 minutes later, she called. I didn't answer. She texted, "Are you seriously doing this? Over a dog?" Then, "I thought you loved Noah. Guess I was wrong." And finally, "You're dead to me." To which I replied, "You locked my family in a dark room without food or water. You lost your right to ask me for anything." Then I blocked her. I stared at my phone after that, fingers trembling slightly. Not because I was scared, because I was free. No more guilt. No more manipulation. No more wondering if maybe this time she'd get it. The door was closed. And this time, I wasn't opening it again. The fallout didn't come all at once, it came in waves. First, the silence. A few blissful days where my phone stayed quiet. No guilt trips. No fake apologies wrapped in guilt-laced manipulation. Then came the storm. A cousin DM'd me. Hey, not sure what's going on, but Amelia posted some cryptic stuff about fake family who turns their back on babies. Everything okay? Then another message. Did something happen with you and Amelia? She told Aunt Debbie you kicked her while she was down. And then the clincher, a shared screenshot from Amelia's private Facebook. Funny how people can call themselves family but abandon you the second you're not useful to them. My son deserves love, not cold-hearted cruelty. Some people care more about pets than people. I stared at the post for a long time. The phrasing, the manipulation, the carefully crafted victimhood made me feel nauseous. She knew exactly what she was doing, and it wasn't just about getting attention, it was about building a narrative. One where she was the brave single mom trying to survive, and I was the heartless sister who'd turned my back on a miracle. No mention of Benny. No mention of locking him up without food or water. Just selective truth. Emotional propaganda. I decided not to engage. No public post. No retaliation. But I wasn't going to let her smear me in private without consequences. So I made a quiet call to Aunt Debbie, the same one Amelia had spun her story to. Can I ask what Amelia said? She told me you're angry and refusing to help because of some old grudge, she said, unsure. She said you're prioritizing a dog over your nephew. She didn't mention the part where she imprisoned that dog in my laundry room for 2 days? A beat. She did not. I explained everything, every detail, calmly, factually. There was a long silence on the other end. Then, she didn't say any of that. Jesus, Natalie. I wasn't asking for anyone to take sides. I just wanted the truth out. And the truth had teeth. Word got around. Not because I spread it, but because Amelia couldn't stop talking. The more she spun the story, the more people started asking questions. And when they heard the full version, the sympathy dried up. Fast. The passive-aggressive posts slowed. The family group chat got a little quieter. And one afternoon, Abby texted me again. I think the tide's turning. Even your mom's starting to admit Amelia went too far. But I didn't care about the gossip. This was never about social redemption. It was about setting a boundary so firm it echoed. Amelia had always operated with immunity, enabled, excused, even celebrated for her selfishness. But now she was discovering something new. That when you cross a line, sometimes the bridge burns. And the people you hurt, they don't always come back. One night I was out walking Benny. The air was cool, the streets quiet. His tail wagged gently as he trotted ahead, sniffing the trees. And suddenly, out of nowhere, I felt it. Peace. Not the fragile kind that shatters with the next phone call or guilt trip. The real kind. The kind you earn by protecting your space, your boundaries, your heart. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't second-guessing myself. I didn't feel cruel. I didn't feel bitter. I felt free. A few days after the Facebook drama started to fizzle out, Mom called again. I almost didn't answer, but something told me I should. Her voice was softer this time, less sharp, more tired. Natalie, she said, I've been thinking. I stayed quiet. I didn't know, she admitted, about the dog, about how bad it really was. I thought maybe you were exaggerating. There it was, not a full apology but a crack in the armor. She didn't tell you the truth, I said flatly. None of it. I know that now. I exhaled slowly. The silence between us was like walking barefoot across glass. Sharp and cautious. But I didn't feel like bleeding anymore. You always took her side, I said, my voice even. Every single time. I know, Mom said, and I'm sorry. Pause. But she's my daughter too. There it was, the inevitable pivot, the attempt to balance. I could almost predict her next sentence. But she's struggling. She locked my dog in a room, Mom, I interrupted. He was shaking under the bed when I came home. Do you even know what that does to a dog? Silence. She didn't forget to feed him. She didn't misplace a bowl. She looked at him and decided he wasn't worthy of comfort. That's not forgetfulness. That's cruelty. More silence. I know you think I'm overreacting. I know you think I should be the bigger person. But I need you to understand something. I paused, gripping the phone tighter. She hurt someone I love. And then she asked me for a favor. That's not family. That's exploitation. There was a long pause. Then Mom said something I didn't expect. You're right. I blinked. She crossed a line. I've spent too long trying to make peace instead of protecting my children. All of you. Not just the one who cries the loudest. I sat down on the edge of the couch. That was probably the closest I'd ever get to a real reckoning from her. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. I don't want to fight anymore, I said. But I won't open that door again. Not for Amelia. I understand. Do you? I do now. The next day I got a message from Abby. FYI, Amelia's dropping out of the group chat. Said she needs space from toxic family energy. I laughed. Because of course she did. Because in her world she's always the victim, the misunderstood, the maligned, the wronged. But for once, no one followed her. No one begged her to stay. No one rushed to patch the holes in her sinking ship. Weeks passed. Benny returned to his normal self, playful, affectionate, trusting. Kept my circle small. I spent weekends with friends who didn't flinch at honesty. I bought a new lock for the laundry room and donated the old mat she'd folded up like it was garbage. And most of all, I never apologized. Not for loving my dog. Not for setting a boundary. Not for finally saying enough. Because I used to think being kind meant being available, being understanding, being soft. But now I knew better. Being kind doesn't mean sacrificing your self-respect. And sometimes, the kindest thing you can do for yourself is walk away. About a month after the dust had settled, I found myself sitting at my desk with a blank page open. I didn't know what I was doing at first. My hands moved before my thoughts did. But soon the cursor blinked in time with my heart and the words started to come. It was a letter. To Amelia. Not to send. Just to write. Amelia, do you remember the first time you met Benny? He ran up to you with his tongue out, tail wagging like you were his long-lost friend. You laughed and called him Golden Goof. He sat by your feet the whole afternoon while we watched that awful rom-com and ate popcorn. You kept sneaking him behind my back. You loved him once. That's what makes this harder. I could almost understand if you were indifferent. If you didn't grow up with animals or had allergies or just didn't get the whole dog person thing. But you did. You knew what he meant to me. You knew he was family. And you still shut him in a cold, dark room for 2 full days. You didn't feed him. You didn't give him water. He was trembling when I came home. And you didn't apologize. You didn't cry. You didn't stammer. You didn't even look ashamed. You just asked for your baby bag and said, "You're overreacting." I paused there. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, then I kept typing. You were right about one thing though. I do love that dog more than I love you. Not because he's cuter or quieter or doesn't throw tantrums at family gatherings. But because Benny has never once made me feel small for loving him. You have. Over and over again. And then you asked me to watch your baby. Like nothing happened. Like you hadn't violated the one unspoken rule we all grow up with. Don't hurt the ones I love. It wasn't just about a dog. It was about trust. And you broke it. I stopped there. No fancy closing. No signature. Just the truth laid bare, sharp and cold and entirely mine. I closed the document and deleted it. Not because I changed my mind, but because I didn't need it anymore. I didn't need Amelia to know how I felt. She'd already been told. What I needed was to finally get it out, purge it from my chest and leave it on that virtual page so I could move forward. Later that night, I found Benny curled up by the laundry room door. It wasn't his usual spot. I crouched next to him and gently nudged his side. You're safe, I whispered. That door doesn't open for her anymore. He thumped his tail once. I took it as a thank you. Revenge looks different depending on who you ask. For Amelia, it probably looks like me groveling at her feet, begging for forgiveness and offering to babysit like nothing ever happened, all while she gets to be the victim in every family chat, her halo polished by sympathetic comments and "ah poor you" emojis. But in reality, my revenge was silence. It was peace. It was a firm no with no explanation owed. She expected me to break. She expected me to cave under pressure, to come crawling back because family is everything. But family, real family, doesn't treat you like a convenience store. They don't harm your dog, lie about it, then demand childcare like nothing happened. Real family says, "I'm sorry, I was wrong." He never did. So she got no access. No explanations. No keys to my home. No more me. The baby? He's innocent. I know that. And maybe one day when he's old enough I'll tell him the story, gently without malice. I'll tell him his aunt loved a dog like a brother, and that she had to walk away to protect what mattered. Because children deserve truth, not curated fairy tales told by people who never own their wrongdoings. And truthfully, I wasn't angry at him. I was angry at the entitlement. The expectation that I should ignore emotional abuse because he's a miracle. I'm not here to argue if he's a miracle or not. But I know Benny is. And I won't sacrifice one miracle for another. Word eventually spread. Not because I told it, but because the people who cared wanted to know. I didn't smear her name. I didn't post receipts or rants. But when people asked, I told them plainly, she mistreated my dog and never apologized. I set a boundary. Simple. Plain. Unshakable. Abby took me out for drinks a few weeks later. We hadn't done that in ages. To boundaries, she said, raising her glass. To Benny, I added. We clinked glasses. He's doing better? Back to his old self, I nodded. Still flinches at loud doors. But we're working on it. You know, she said, Amelia's still telling people you're being dramatic. I rolled my eyes. She can call me dramatic all she wants, as long as she calls me from very far away. Abby laughed, then paused. You did the right thing. I looked out the window where the city lights danced like quiet little victories. Yeah, I said. I know. The truth is, revenge isn't always about destroying someone else. Sometimes, it's about choosing not to destroy yourself to make someone else comfortable. Sometimes it's refusing to open the door again, no matter who's knocking. Sometimes it's saving yourself, and the ones who never stopped loving you. It's strange how peace feels when it finally settles in. Quiet, undramatic, like a warm room after a long walk in the cold. No fireworks, no last words, just calm. Amelia never reached out again. Not after the message I sent, not after the family fell silent on her behalf. Her pride, it seems, was more important than repairing any relationship. Not that I'd expected her to try. Mom still tiptoed around the subject, but even she knew better than to pressure me now. I had made my choice. The holidays came and went. Benny wore a ridiculous little sweater with snowflakes on it, and Abby brought a bottle of wine and a game that had us laughing so hard we cried. There was no mention of Amelia. No tension. Just joy. And for once I didn't feel guilty for choosing it. Months later I got a letter in the mail. Handwritten. No return address. My stomach flipped when I saw the handwriting. It was Amelia's. I stood there for a while, envelope in hand, Benny nudging my leg with his nose as if to ask, "You sure you want to go there again?" I opened it. The letter was short. Natalie, I've thought about writing you 100 times and never knew what to say. I still don't. But I want to say this. I was wrong. About everything. I was exhausted. I was scared. I was selfish. I hurt Benny. I hurt you. And I never said I was sorry, because I didn't want to admit how badly I messed up. You didn't deserve any of it. I don't expect forgiveness. But I hope one day you'll believe I mean it when I say I'm sorry. Amelia. I stood there rereading it 3 times. Then I set it down. And sat with it. Not with anger. Not with hope. Just stillness. Benny hopped up on the couch beside me, resting his head on my lap. His eyes half closed as I scratched behind his ear. "No one locks you away again," I whispered. "Not while I'm breathing." He wagged his tail once. I didn't respond to the letter. Not because I hated her, but because some bridges stay burned for a reason. Forgiveness doesn't always mean reconnection. Sometimes it's a quiet release, for them and for yourself. Today, Benny and I walk the same block we did that winter she locked him away. He struts proudly beside me, stopping to sniff every lamppost like it's a ceremony. He's not afraid anymore. And neither am I. Because real loyalty, it's not something you demand. Something you protect.